that? How you like that? Is that a lineup for you? Okay, get ready to take the notes because this is a practical thing on how you get to money. And we're going to give you the rules on how you do it. And first, you have to have a +5. Now, if you got a 9 to 5, keep it. Get ready to get a +5. The first gentleman that's going to talk to you, he's working on his second million. He's working on his second million. I don't know what happened to the first million, but this is his second time around. And I want to be around people like that. I can tell you that the book that you want to read is called Black on Knowledge. And he comes out of Cincinnati. He is a very conscious black man, one of the foremost writers on business, success, and prosperity in the United States of America today. Let us bring forth Mr. Jim Clingman. Give it up for Brother Jim Clingman. Either one. Brother Jim.
Good morning. Is it morning or afternoon? I don't know. I know if it's Saturday, this must be Atlanta, right? All right, we're on tour, mini tours, so it's hard to keep up with where we are sometimes, and especially what time it is. But once again, good afternoon to you. It is a pleasure and honor and a privilege to be here with you, to see some of my old friends that I've met before, and especially to see those brothers and sisters, my relatives that I've never met before. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here. You didn't know who I was when I was sitting. I'm your brother. I'm sitting right next to you. He said, move up to the front. That's right, champions. As Brother John said, I thank him for that introduction. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Sometimes I call it Cincinnapathy, Ohio. I'm sure if you watch TV, you probably know why. So you will probably also understand why I have such a rough time there, because I will stand up and tell it like it is, and that's what I came to do today. You are going to hear a lot of information today from some brothers and sisters who really have committed and dedicated themselves to uplifting our people. We need more folks like that. You're going to hear from some folks today who you can really look upon and say, that's what leadership's all about. Not pleadership, leadership. People who are not afraid to stand up and speak the truth to power or to anybody else, and to stand up against injustice, to stand up for our people, and to do everything they can with whatever resources they have to build and to leave an economic legacy here for our children. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's what we're here for. And once again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. My role in this troop, this traveling troop of economic empowerment, of course, is to continue the overall goal of spreading the economic gospel. I know you're going to appreciate that, sis. That's what we're going to do, spread the economic gospel here in Atlanta. Then we're going to move on to Birmingham tomorrow and do the same thing. We were in Chattanooga last night, a wonderful, wonderful crowd, beautiful reception, and people walked out of there not just feeling good, but doing good. And that's what we want to leave you with today. We don't want you to just come here and cheer, oh, that sounded good, oh, that was real nice, and I felt real good. We got enough folks doing that. We need some folks who can not only make you feel good, but make you do good as well. That's what we want to accomplish today. We don't want you to leave out of here just saying, oh, that was nice, and go home, and Monday you're right back to the same routine. We want you to change. So we're going to ask you to just forget about all the things you've learned and all the things that you've been programmed with, just like we've been programmed when it comes to economic empowerment and doing for ourselves, among ourselves, in support of one another. I want you to forget about all that stuff, because you know we've been programmed to the hilt when it comes to money. We're not supposed to have any, and if we have some, we're supposed to spend it on everything that everybody else makes, and we do it. Come on, y'all can amen that too. And we do it. So we have to change that. And our mission and our goal going around the country is to help you do that. And not because all of us are millionaires. As Brother John said, I'm working on my second million. I gave up on the first one. But I'm going to make the second one $16.95 at a time right here by selling this book right now. This is my goal. But we are with a group of brothers. I'm privileged to be traveling with these brothers. I drove down from Chattanooga with Brother Joe Dudley, and we had an opportunity to talk. And you know, it makes you feel pretty good when a man of his accomplishment tells you, Jim, there's some things that you know that I need to know. There's some things that you can do that I can't do. And I'm looking at this brother, all the stuff that he's done. But that's what we should be about, because none of us can do everything. So we need this synergy. And we put together this team to bring together the synergy that comes from all of us working together so that we can bring you an overall message, a message that's going to help you in all different areas when it comes to economic empowerment. We hope to expand on it. This is our first tour, but we are going to expand on it. It's going to get better. It's going to get bigger, and we're going to continue to do what we have to do with whatever resources we have, whatever we bring to the table to help our people move forward. That's what we're here for today. My role, as I see it, is to deal a lot with our consciousness, to kind of lay the glue out here to hold all of this other information together that you're going to get. I deal a lot with business. I teach entrepreneurship, a course called Black Entrepreneurship at the University of Cincinnati, and I teach business planning, but I like to talk about black consciousness. I like to talk about what our obligation is to one another, because these brothers here are going to give you some business stuff. And you're going to get three businesses that you can participate in. So I'm not going to dwell too long on that. My role is to kind of lay out the format and to talk about our consciousness or the lack thereof. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that we should understand, above and beyond any people in this country, what it means to be conscious. And as Brother John said, and I say this too, a black millionaire who does not have a consciousness is just another black millionaire. And we have a lot of those. We saw some fighting last night. We saw some throwing some chairs at one another last week. So, consciousness helps you to stay on track. And as Brother Jackie will tell you, and I quoted him in my book, it's not just enough to have consciousness. Your consciousness has to be disturbed to the point that you're willing to stand up and do something about the condition that you see running rampant among our people, especially among our children. So we bring to you this whole context of economic empowerment, starting with consciousness, starting with history. And I like to talk a lot about black business history. Is Sweet Auburn still sweet, y'all? Y'all can tell me, I don't live here. Sweet Auburn ain't sweet no more. But it used to be Sweet Auburn, didn't it? And the Greenwood district used to be pretty sweet too in Tulsa, Oklahoma, didn't it? And Hayti in Durham, North Carolina, and I could go on and on and on and name you all the cities, all the business enclaves that used to exist, all of the people who put together businesses in spite of the most horrendous treatment ever put on the people. I could run down the list, because history is very, very important for us to understand when it comes to black business. We have to know that our ancestors, our relatives, did everything we stand here talking about today. They did it. Your great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents did everything we're talking about doing today. So I don't want you to get hung up on this. Like I said, forget everything you've been taught. I don't want you to keep thinking that, well, we can't do this, we ain't never had no experience, and our people just not inclined to do business, and we'd rather work. Forget that stuff. Our people took care of business. The folks that were brought over here on those what we call slave ships, they were really entrepreneur ships, because they were filled with entrepreneurs. They were filled with brothers and sisters, our relatives, who participated in world commerce thousands of years before they even thought about trying to go get some of them to bring them over here and to make something out of this land. This land wasn't worth two dead flies until they put a slave on it. And I'm changing that until they put an entrepreneur on it, because these brothers knew how to grow stuff, how to make stuff, how to put things together. And I'm sure, just like I can do, you can go back in your history, maybe your grandparents, and go and see something your grandfather or grandmother did or made or built. I can go to Winston-Salem, North Carolina now, out in Clemens, and see a church that my grandfather built. This brother didn't even go to school. The church is still there. And I wondered, how in the world did he know how to do that? They knew all kinds of things. That's why they were brought here. So they were entrepreneurs, and those were entrepreneurships that they came over on. The history of black business is very important for us to understand. As far back as the 1600s, black folks in this country were starting businesses. starting businesses with whatever they had because they knew they had to have some money to get free, right? To buy their freedom, to buy their children's freedom, their wives' freedom, their brothers and sisters and all. They had to get some money. The same thing applies today. And speaking of history, let's go even further back and look at that group of folks who finally got out of slavery from Egypt. Y'all remember them? Well, first of all, they got their reparations. You can read about that in Exodus 12. They went back and got their reparations. God knew they were going to need some money when they got out in that desert, didn't he? He said, nah, y'all go back and get paid for that 400 years of work. So don't let anybody tell you ain't no precedent for reparations. It goes way, way back. So when they got the money, though, what's the first thing they spent it on? A golden calf. Their dollars didn't make no sense. Just like ours don't today. We have a lot of golden calves. Driving around our neighborhoods look like Bradley fighting vehicles. A lot of them. Our dollar's not making any sense today either. So I started thinking about that and said, that's a real parallel between what those people did and what we're doing. They were freed physically, but they weren't psychologically free. They were still psychologically enslaved, because some of them talking about they wanted to go back. Now, ain't that something? But didn't they tell Harriet Tubman that too? I don't want to leave, Harriet. Leave me alone. I got a good job. I want to stay here. So another parallel between the Israelites and us here in this country. So while they were walking around complaining, oh, we need some water, we need some food, you got us out here, we're going to die, we ain't got nothing. Had everything they needed, didn't they? Had everything they needed. Didn't even realize they walked around, shoes wasn't even wearing out, clothes wasn't wearing out. Had everything they needed. Walked around for 40 years because of that. How long we been walking around since Pharaoh Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act in 1964? 40 years. Y'all tired? I know I am. I was hoping we wouldn't make that 40-year record. I wanted them to have the record, but now we have equaled that record. Walking around 40 years talking about what we don't have, what we can't do, what he won't let us do. We want to go back to the plantation. We want to stay on the plantation, doing the same thing they did. We have to change that. 40 years is enough time. It's time to change that, because it's insulting, it's a sad commentary on our people, and it speaks to our commitment and our dedication to our children if we don't plant some trees, the shade of which they can enjoy, even though we may not even be around. We have to do that. That's our obligation. So think about us as we talk to you today, as you hear the other brothers come before you. Think about it in a historical context and understand that we have a lot of work to do. And what is the work? The work revolves around business. Why? Because everything in this country operates on business. Economics is under everything. Booker T. Washington said at the bottom of politics, at the bottom of education, at the bottom of even religion lies politics. And he was trying to tell his people what to do back then. He said, you go to town with your wagon empty and your pockets full, and you come back home with your wagon full and your pockets empty. So you need to go to town with your wagons full of your produce and your pockets empty, and come back home with your wagons empty and your pockets full. Booker T had it down, because he understood that economics runs everything in this country. And we have to understand that. And I know a lot of y'all sitting there saying, no, it's politics. And I know a lot of you still got a hangover from what happened on November the 2nd. I know you're kind of feeling bad, and you probably still got on your sackcloth and the ashes, and you're hurting real bad. Some of you. But don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. You shouldn't have been worried about it in the first place. Republicrats, Demopublicans, two wings on the same bird, y'all. Sometimes they go left, sometimes they go right. Same bird. Same bird. You know what bird that is? Corporate bird. The big business bird. Big bird, big business bird. So George Bush is back. Y'all got him another 4 years. He did have an operation recently. Y'all hear that? He had surgery. You heard about it? He had a colonectomy. Y'all heard about that, didn't you? He had a colonectomy performed for his next 4 years because he was feeling a little weak. His digestive system wasn't handling that rum and rice too well, you know, so he had to have a colonectomy so he could handle that Rumsfeld, and that rice that he was taking in. So after he had the colonectomy, the doctor said, you got to change your diet. So he started saying, more rice, more rice. Bring me some brown rice, that good kind, that condi rice. I got to have more of that. So Bush is on a high fiber diet now, y'all. He getting strong, eating that brown rice. You think you didn't get that the first 4 years? You're in trouble now. But it doesn't bother me. It doesn't, because I know that what affects us is local. I mean, the man's gonna, I can't imagine he can find another Supreme Court justice that equal the one his father put up there, but that's another speech. But I mean, yeah, he's gonna do that. But he's gonna have a fight on his hands with that. But you know, I don't get into this thing that thinking that politics is my salvation and whoever's in office, you know, and this and that. Hey, the boys with the money don't care. They don't care. There was a brother named, not a brother, named Baron Rothschild, a long time ago said, give me control of the finances of the world and I care not who runs politics. They don't care. They want you to think they care. They don't really care. So we have to understand that too. And don't think that some white elephant or some white donkey gonna ride down Peachtree Street and save y'all. It ain't coming. No white knight on no elephant or the donkey, it ain't coming. And if they coming, they ain't coming to save y'all. John Henry Clark said, a slave has to free himself. Nobody ever freed a slave. Slave has to free himself. How do we free ourselves in 2004? How do we change this 40-year walk around this desert called the United States? Business. Owning something. Now, Bush is talking about that. You want an ownership society? Let's make it come true. Let's give him a victory. He said, I want people to own stuff. I want y'all to own stuff too. Own some income-producing assets. Own and control them. That's what this is all about. And you're going to hear today 3 businesses that you can get involved with and own something. You're also going to hear how you can save a whole lot of money just by doing that. Because we got the master up here tell you how to save your money on taxes just because you went into business. But that's key. That's why we started an entrepreneurship high school in Cincinnati. Because I looked around and said, no, but they're not teaching our children anything but the same stuff they were teaching me. And I know that was wrong. Carter G. Woodson told me that was wrong. The people that we are sending our children to educate now are teaching our kids to grow up and to be able to work for their kids. That's what they're teaching them. They're not teaching them to own businesses. They're not teaching them to stand up and be job makers rather than job takers. There ain't nothing wrong with having a job, but you better understand that it ain't yours. It's on loan. And they can come and take it back anytime they want. Anytime they want. And jobs, come on, we all had jobs when we got off those entrepreneurships. Everybody had a job. It was full employment in this country then for black folks. Then the biggest downsizing in history came. Lincoln fired all the slaves. But some of those slaves said, hey, this is an opportunity. They didn't whine and cry, oh, I don't have no job, he put me off the plantation. Some of those slaves said, hey, I'm going to Boley, Oklahoma. I'm going to Nicodemus, Kansas. I'm out of here. I'm going to do something for myself. They don't want me anyway. They don't want me anyway, so I'm going to leave. And we are the remnant of those entrepreneurs who said, I'm leaving. I'm taking a risk. I'm going to do something for my people. You see the remnant right up here. In a Joe Dudley and a Jackie Mayfield and others, and out there I'm sure, who stood up and said, look, enough's enough. We got to own something in this country. That's what we want you to do. We really want you to leave here doing something, committed to doing something, not just feeling good, but doing good as well. And you'll be surprised you can do good and do well at the same time. You're going to see some examples of that today. One more point about this politics thing. Do all of you get the Harvest Institute newsletter? Dr. Claude Anderson, have you seen this? He's got a piece in here about voting and wait a minute, let me clarify this. I'm not telling anybody not to vote. We should all do that. We always hear about the sacrifices our brothers and sisters made. We never hear about the sacrifices our brothers and sisters made for us to be in business, though. But that's another speech as well. But Dr. Claude Anderson has this quote in here about a myth that black people buy into. And part of it says, dependent nearly totally on their own birth rate, black Americans are outnumbered 8-to-1 by non-blacks. When one rabbit is fenced in with 8 hungry hound dogs, how important is the rabbit's vote on what the hound dogs want for dinner? Now, I could play for you another piece that a brother in Cleveland, Ohio did 4 years ago called The Wake Up Call that went out to the Mata, Quad David Whitaker. If you have that, or if you have access to it, you need to listen to it now because it'll apply. The same thing he said 4 years ago is similar to what Dr. Anderson just said in this newsletter. We have to get some perspective here, y'all. For 40 years we've been playing this game. We got to change the game, write our own rules, and control the game that we're in. If we're going to win, if we're going to be free, if we're going to be independent, we have to do that. Now, I'm going to take my seat because I think I've said enough. I really want you to hear from these brothers, and we want you to get enough information so that you can leave here and really do something. But I'm going to give you a couple of quotes out of this book, and I really want you to listen to this and take it in, especially this one. It says, plan for what is difficult while it is easy. Do what is great while it is small. The most difficult things in the world must be done while they are still easy. The greatest things in the world must be done while they are still small. For this reason, sages never do what is great, and this is why they can achieve that greatness. That comes out of the book, The Art of War. The art of war. We're in a war, folks.
That's right.
The battleground is the marketplace. The weapons are our pockets and purses. The bullets, the ammunition, is our dollars. We got to fight with those. Booker T. Washington said a long time ago, he wrote a letter, he said, I hear there are problems with that little white ballot you all are casting. The people are not counting it and throwing it out. He said, but there's a little green ballot that you cast every day that nobody will refuse to take or throw out. Understand that. You spend those green ballots every single day. Every day. We buy what we want and we beg for what we need. Got to stop that. There's a guy named Thorsten Veblen, an old economist that came up with the term conspicuous consumption. And if you didn't know, that's what they apply to black folks these days, conspicuous consumers. He came up with this term. Let me read you the definition of the term that he came up with. He coined the phrase conspicuous consumption in 1899 to designate the act of purchasing and using certain goods and services, not in order to survive, but rather to identify oneself to others as having superior wealth and social standing. Now that you know the definition, can black people be called conspicuous consumers? We are so worried and so hung up on how people look at us and how they perceive us and what they think we have. And we're throwing our money at folks just to achieve that empty goal. It's an empty goal. It doesn't mean anything. A couple of other things I want to read to you. I have spent 2.5 years in a major research effort concerning the economic viability of the inner city. The problems of the inner city are not there because of lack of effort. They are there because we are using the wrong model. The only way to solve the problems in the inner city is by building an economic strategy. We need to create the conditions to develop profitable businesses there. A guy named Michael Porter wrote that, Dr. Michael Porter, Harvard Business School. I figured I better put some quotes in here from some white folks because we have a tendency to believe them a lot more than we do our brothers and sisters. Because our brothers and sisters passed on a whole lot of knowledge to us, and we keep rejecting it. We keep rejecting it. We need to stop rejecting because Hosea 4:6 says, because you have rejected knowledge, therefore I will reject you. That's what it says, and it says. But we always like to say, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And then we stand back and say, aren't I smart? Finish the verse. Finish the verse, y'all. It don't stop there. finally, we talk about how we're going to do this thing. What do we need to do? People talk, I hear on the radio all the time, what we need to do, I get so tired of hearing we need. And everybody talking about what we need to do, and then they call in, well, Jim, what do we need to do, and how do we do this and everything? Let me give you a quote from a very simple philosopher, your homeboy. His name is James Brown. He said, let's get together and get some land. Raise our food like the man. Save our money like the mob. Put up a factory and own the job. Thanks a lot. God bless you.
My. Y'all like the brother, right? Okay, let me give you 3 rules now for building the business. Let me give you 3 rules. You can work hard and work real hard and still be real broke.